A zombie is a fictional undead being created through the reanimation of a human corpse. Zombies are most commonly found in horror and fantasy genre works. The term comes from Haitian folklore, where a zombie is a dead body reanimated through various methods, most commonly magic. Modern depictions of zombies do not necessarily involve magic but often invoke science-fictional methods such as radiation, mental diseases, viruses, scientific accidents, etc. The English word zombie is first recorded in 1819 in a history of Brazil by the poet Robert Southey in the form of zombie. The Oxford English Dictionary gives the origin of the word as West African and compares it to the Congo words Zambi and Zumbi. One of the first books to expose Western culture to the concept of the voodoo zombie was The Magic Island by W. B. C. Brooke in 1929. This is the sensationalized account of a narrator who encounters voodoo cults in Haiti and the resurrected thralls. Time claimed that the book introduced zombie into U.S. speech. Zombies have a complex literary heritage, with antecedents ranging from Richard Matheson and H.P. Lovecraft to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, drawing on European folklore of the undead. In 1932, Victor Halperin directed White Zombie, a horror film starring Bela Lugosi. Here zombies are depicted as mindless, unthinking henchmen under the spell of an evil magician. Zombies, often still using this voodoo-inspired rationale, were initially uncommon in cinema, but their appearances continued sporadically through the 1930s to the 1960s, with notable films including I Walked with a Zombie and Plan 9 from Outer Space. A new version of the zombie, distinct from that described in Haitian folklore, has also emerged in popular culture in recent decades. This zombie is taken largely from George A. Romero's seminal film Night of the Living Dead, which was in turn partly inspired by Richard Matheson's 1954 novel I Am Legend. The word zombie is not used in Night of the Living Dead, but was applied later by fans. The monsters in the film in its sequels, such as Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, as well as its many inspired works, such as Return of the Living Dead and Zombie 2, are usually hungry for human flesh. Although Return of the Living Dead introduced the popular concept of zombies eating brains, the zombie apocalypse concept, in which the civilized world is brought low by global zombie infestation, became a staple of modern popular art. Etymology. The English word zombie is first recorded in 1819 in a history of Brazil by the poet Robert Southey in the form of zombie, actually referring to the Afro-Brazilian rebel leader named Zumbi and the etymology of his name in Zambi. The Oxford English Dictionary gives the origin of the word as West African and compares it to the Congo words Zambi and Zumbi. In Haitian folklore, a zombie is an animated corpse raised by magical means, such as witchcraft. The concept has been popularly associated with the religion of voodoo, but it plays no part in that faith's formal practices. How the creatures in contemporary zombie films came to be called zombies is not fully clear. The film Night of the Living Dead made no spoken reference to its undead antagonists as zombies, describing them instead as ghouls, although George Romero used the term ghoul in his original scripts. In later interviews he used the term zombie. The word zombie is used exclusively by Romero in his 1978 script for his sequel Dawn of the Dead, including once in dialogue. According to George Romero, film critics were influential in associating the term zombie to his creatures, and especially the French magazine Corpse.Du Cinéma. He eventually accepted this linkage, even though he remained convinced at the time that zombies corresponded to the undead slaves of Haitian voodoo, as depicted in Bela Lugosi's White Zombie. Folk beliefs. Haitian tradition. Zombies are featured widely in Haitian rural folklore as dead persons physically revived by the act of necromancy of a bokor, a sorcerer or witch. The bokor is opposed by the Homun, a priest, and the mambo, a priestess of the formal voodoo religion. The zombie remains under the control of the bokor as a personal slave, having no will of its own. The Haitian tradition also includes an incorporeal type of zombie, the zombie astral, which is a part of the human soul. A bokor can capture a zombie astral to enhance his spiritual power. The zombie astral can also be sealed inside a specially decorated bottle by a bokor and sold to a client to bring luck, healing of business success. It is believed that God eventually will reclaim the zombie's soul, so the zombie is a temporary spiritual entity. It has been suggested that the two types of zombie reflect soul dualism, a belief of Haitian voodoo. Each type of legendary zombie is therefore missing one half of its soul. The zombie belief has its roots in traditions brought to Haiti by enslaved Africans, and the subsequent experiences in the New World. It was thought that the voodoo deity Baron Samedi would gather them from the grave to bring them to a heavenly afterlife in Africa, unless they had offended him in some way, in which case they would be forever a slave after death, as a zombie. The zombie could also be saved by feeding them salt. A number of scholars have pointed out the significance of the zombie figure as a metaphor for the history of slavery in Haiti. While most scholars have associated the Haitian zombie with African cultures, a connection has also been suggested to the island's indigenous Taino people, partly based on an early account of native shamanist practices written by the Hieronymite monk Ramon Pane, a companion of Christopher Columbus. The Haitian zombie phenomenon first attracted widespread international attention during the United States occupation of Haiti, when a number of case histories of purported zombies began to emerge. The first popular book covering the topics was William C. Brooks' The Magic Island. Seabrick cited Article 246 of the Haitian Criminal Code, which was passed in 1864, asserting that it was an official recognition of zombies. This passage was later used in promotional materials for the 1932 film White Zombie. Also shall be qualified as attempted murder the employment which may be made by any person of substances which, without causing actual death, produce a lethargic coma more or less prolonged, if after the administering of such substances, the person has been buried, the act shall be considered murder no matter what result follows. In 1937, while researching folklore in Haiti, Zora Neale Hurston encountered the case of a woman who appeared in a village. A family claimed she was Felicia Felix Mentor, a relative who had died and been buried in 1907 at the age of 29. The woman was examined by a doctor. X-rays indicated that she did not have a leg fracture that Felix Mentor was known to have had. Hurston pursued rumors that affected persons were given a powerful psychoactive drug, but she was unable to locate individuals willing to offer much information. She wrote, "What is more, if science ever gets to the bottom of voodoo in Haiti and Africa, it will be found that some important medical secrets, still unknown to medical science, give it its power, rather than gestures of ceremony." African and related legends. A Central or West African origin for the Haitian zombie has been postulated based on two etymologies in the Congo language, Zambi and Zumbi. This root helps form the names of several deities, including the Congo creator deity Zambi Mpungu and the Louisiana serpent deity Le Grand Zombie. But it is in fact a generic word for a divine spirit. The common African conception of beings under these names is more similar to the incorporeal zombie astral, as in the Congo Nkisi spirits. A related, but also often incorporeal, undead being is the Jumbi of the English-speaking Caribbean. considered to be of the same etymology. In the French West Indies also, local zombies are recognized, but these are of a more general spirit nature. The idea of physical zombie-like creatures is present in some South African cultures, where they are called Sidachain in Sotho, Songa and Madaxwain in Venda. In some communities, it is believed that a dead person can be zombified by a small child. It is said that the spell can be broken by a powerful enough sangoma. It is also believed in some areas of South Africa that witches can zombify a person by killing and possessing the victim's body in order to force it into slave labor. After rail lines were built to transport migrant workers, stories emerged about witch trains. These trains appeared ordinary, but were staffed by zombified workers controlled by a witch. The trains would abduct a person boarding at night, and the person would then either be turned into a zombified worker, or beaten and thrown from the train a distance away from the original location. Evolution of the zombie archetype. Pulliam Fonseca and Waltz trace the zombie lineage back to the Epic of Gilgamesh. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, while not a zombie novel in particular, prefigures many 20th-century ideas about zombies in that the resurrection of the dead is portrayed as a scientific process rather than a mystical one, and that the resurrected dead are degraded and more violent than their living selves. Frankenstein, published in 1818, has its roots in European folklore, whose tales of vengeful dead also informed the evolution of the modern conception of the vampire. Later notable 19th-century stories about the avenging undead included Ambrose Bierce's The Death of Halpin Fraser, and various Gothic Romanticism tales by Edgar Allan Poe. Though the works could not be properly considered zombie fiction, the supernatural tales of Bierce and Poe would prove influential on later writers such as H.P. Lovecraft. By Lovecraft's own admission, in the 1920s and early 1930s, the American horror author H.P. Lovecraft wrote several novellae that explored the undead theme. Cool Air, In the Vault, and The Outsider all deal with the undead, but Lovecraft's Herbert West Reanimator helped define zombies in popular culture. This series of short stories featured Herbert West, a mad scientist who attempts to revive human corpses with mixed results. Notably, the resurrected dead are uncontrollable, mostly mute, primitive and extremely violent, though they are not referred to as zombies. The portrayal was prescient, anticipating the modern conception of zombies by several decades. Edgar Rice Burroughs similarly depicted animated corpses in the second book of his Venus series, again without ever using the terms zombie or undead. Avenging zombies would feature prominently in the early 1950s EC Comics, which George A. Romero would later claim as an influence. The comics, including Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror and Weird Science, featured avenging undead in the Gothic tradition quite regularly, including adaptations of Lovecraft's stories, which included In the Vault, Cool Air and Herbert West Reanimator. Richard Matheson's 1954 novel I Am Legend, although classified as a vampire story, would nonetheless have definitive impact on the zombie genre by way of George A. Romero. The novel and its 1964 film adaptation, The Last Man on Earth, which concern a lone human survivor waging war against a world of vampires, would by Romero's own admission greatly influence his 1968 low-budget film Night of the Living Dead, a work that would prove to be more influential on the concept of zombies than any literary or cinematic work before it. Origins of zombie beliefs. Chemical hypothesis. Several decades after Hurston's work, Wade Davis, a Harvard ethnobotanist, presented a pharmacological case for zombies in a 1983 paper in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology, and later in two popular books, The Serpent and the Rainbow and Passage of Darkness, The Ethnobiology of the Haitian Zombie. Davis traveled to Haiti in 1982 and, as a result of his investigations, claimed that a living person can be turned into a zombie by two special powders being introduced into the bloodstream. The first, Cuda powder, includes tetrodotoxin, a powerful and frequently fatal neurotoxin found in the flesh of the pufferfish. The second powder consists of delirium drugs such as datura. Together, these powders were said to induce a death-like state in which the will of the victim would be entirely subjected to that of the bokor. Davis also popularized the story of Clairvius Narcissus, who was claimed to have succumbed to this practice. The most ethically questioned and least scientifically explored ingredient of the powders is part of a recently buried child's brain. The process described by Davis was an initial state of death-like suspended animation, followed by reawakening, typically after being buried, into a psychotic state. The psychosis induced by the drug and psychological trauma was hypothesized by Davis to reinforce culturally learned beliefs and to cause the individual to reconstruct their identity as that of a zombie, since they knew they were dead and had no other role to play in the Haitian society. Societal reinforcement of the belief was hypothesized by Davis to confirm for the zombie individual the zombie state, and such individuals were known to hang around in graveyards, exhibiting attitudes of low affect. Davis's claim has been criticized, particularly the suggestion that Haitian witch doctors can keep zombies in a state of pharmacologically induced trance for many years. Symptoms of TTX poisoning range from numbness and nausea to paralysis, particularly of the muscles of the diaphragm, unconsciousness, and death, but do not include a stiffened gait or a death-like trance. According to psychologist Terence Hines, the scientific community dismisses tetrodotoxin as the cause of this state, and Davis's assessment of the nature of the reports of Haitian zombies is viewed as overly credulous. Social hypothesis. Scottish psychiatrist R.D. Lame highlighted the link between social and cultural expectations and compulsion in the context of schizophrenia and other mental illness, suggesting that schizogenesis may account for some of the psychological aspects of zombification. Particularly, this suggests cases where schizophrenia manifests a state of catatonia. Roland Littlewood, professor of anthropology and psychiatry, published a study supporting a social explanation of the zombie phenomenon in the medical journal The Lancet in 1997. The social explanation sees observed cases of people identified as zombies as a culture-bound syndrome, with a particular cultural form of adoption practiced in Haiti that unites the homeless and mentally ill with grieving families who see them as their returned, lost loved ones. As Littlewood summarizes his findings in an article in Times Higher Education, I came to the conclusion that although it is unlikely that there is a single explanation for all cases where zombies are recognized by locals in Haiti, the mistaken identification of a wandering mentally ill stranger by bereaved relatives is the most likely explanation in many cases. People with a chronic schizophrenic illness, brain damage or learning disability are not uncommon in rural Haiti, and they would be particularly likely to be identified as zombies.